Hello, I'm Kevin Ron, and this is Insight. Insight into a heinous crime committed against a young mother and her daughter that resulted in their deaths. And now the perpetrator is seeking clemency from the governor. We'll be back with today's Insight after this word from our sponsor, County Executive Jimmy Johnson.
A team is made up of individuals all headed in the same direction. I'm Jimmy Johnson, and as the leader of this team, I realize being on the team doesn't mean being the same. Each commissioner, department head, and employee of the county have different qualities and skills that, when combined, make a strong team. The most important thing we can all have is the same goal, which is to see this county prosper.
Paid for by Jimmy Johnson. The definition of heinous, of a person or wrongful act, especially a crime, utterly odious or wicked. And that describes the act that was committed against the family I'm talking with today. I'm talking with John B. Mullinix, his wife Julie, their granddaughter Karen, and also our special guest on Insight today, Fentress County's District Attorney General Jared Effler. John, I'd like for you to begin and share with our listeners exactly why we are meeting today and sharing this with them.
Kevin, back June the 3rd, 2006, we were notified by the Fentress County Sheriff's Department that we needed to go to the emergency room over in Cumberland County. At the time, we didn't know exactly what had happened, and I thought maybe Kimberly, I call her Kimbo, so I'm going to use Kimbo. I thought Kimbo maybe had a wreck. We didn't know what had happened, and our pastor took us over there, he and his wife, and we went to the hospital, the emergency room, and the sheriff of Cumberland County met us there, and then he told us what had happened. Our daughter, Kimberly, she was 27, and her granddaughter, Sarah, age 4, they had both been brutally murdered by a man in Cumberland County. Sarah was, as we understand it, was shot twice in the neck, and Kim, she was shot numerous times. And Karen, our other granddaughter, she was age 6. She witnessed everything. She witnessed her mother and her little sister being killed. They were so close, and it was so hard on all of us. Kim was dead at the scene, but we understand that Sarah died while being airlifted to Knoxville. It was the most horrible night ever. Someone I was talking to long ago, they said, I don't understand how you could ever live with it, and it has been a horrible, horrible thing for all of our family. It was like that night someone opened my rib cage and literally pulled my heart out. And that's the closest I can tell you how it felt. I've had people say, I don't see how you live with it, how you continue. But I tell them, look, we have no options. We have to go on. We've got other family. We've got Karen. We've got grandkids. We've got one another that we live for. We think of them each and every single day. Not a day goes by that we don't think of Kimbo and Sarah. We call her Sarah Bug because she was so small, 4 years old. At the very beginning of the case, the death penalty was being sought. There was never any question of the man's guilt. There were eyewitnesses and his own admission. After approximately three years in the court system, he made a plea deal with the DA in Cookeville, and he pled guilty in exchange for 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. And even after that, we had to go to post-conviction hearings several times due to him stating that his attorneys didn't do their job, etc. We went down there many, many times, and we'd have to look at this man that brutally murdered my daughter and my granddaughter. And it's been one of the hardest things that we've ever thought we would ever had to do. We've had to relive this tragedy over and over as all the different hearings taking place, and we each struggled in our own way to live with this. My wife, Julie, when they came to the door that night, that first night, she literally fell to the floor on her knees, cried out to God. We were doing everything that we knew to do to serve God. We didn't understand why this was happening, but we knew we had to go on, and we had to continue serving God, and we continue to this day. My wife, Julie, I would wake up sometimes, this was weeks later, she would be laying on the floor in her bedroom crying, weeping. We struggled every single day. And finally, he did plead to the murders, and they gave him those 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. And now, after 16 years, he is asking for the governor of Tennessee to give him clemency to commute his sentence. He's telling that he has been rehabilitated. He shot my daughter multiple times, execution style. He shot my 4-year-old granddaughter twice. He claimed they were ricochets. They were not ricochets. He literally pointed it at that 4-year-old granddaughter and pulled those triggers. This man must never, ever, ever see the light of day. We asked Governor Lee to deny clemency, to never give this man clemency. We have been asked by our district attorney in Cookeville, Brian Dunaway. We also have our district attorney general, Mr. Effler, with us today, and he's going to have a comment or two a little bit later on. But they've asked us to write letters to send to the governor to let the governor know how we, our family, how this community feels. Not only, Kevin, did this affect our family. I was county executive at the time. Julie was a registered nurse in the home health system. It affected this entire community. I have had people tell me thousands of times that when they first heard that, they were so devastated. This man must never, ever see the light of day.
Miss Julie, I know you have some comments you would like to share.
Well, the only thing I'd just like to ask anybody and everybody to please help us to get these letters together, because this man got a life sentence and he has the possibility for clemency. We received a life sentence when he chose to do what he did, and there's no clemency for us. We will live out our lives without Kim and Sarah. They're not coming back. I mean, he even has the possibility that he could be free. We will never see them again. They won't be at the next Thanksgiving or the next Christmas or the next birthday. We will live out our life sentence without them. And I would just beg people to write and ask the Board of Parole and the governor not to grant clemency, because this man deserves the life sentences that he got. Even that, to me, is not justice, but it's as close as we'll come. I just pray that he never gets released.
John, I know what you're asking, and we're behind you 100%. There came a point in this whole situation that you had to forgive and release as far as for you, for the peace of your heart, and according to the Word of God, you had to forgive. But still, the Word of God also calls for the obedience of the law, and that there is repercussions when you don't obey the law.
Kevin, we was in that court system 3 years. There were times that I've tried to plan ways to kill that man. It was eating me like a cancer. I was over there at the beginning in Cumberland County. We got there at the wrong time at the courthouse and nobody was there. And I thought, if I could have just had that handgun with me, I could have put it under this chair. They made us go back out, then go through a metal detector. But I could have hid that gun. I thought I could kill him. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to tear him apart with my hands. And it took me 3 years of eating away at me. And God was dealing with me, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed. But God finally showed me, He said, I had to forgive that man. It didn't mean I had to go sit down and break bread with him or anything. But on the last day, I got up in front of the judge and the system there, And I looked at the man. I told him the pain that he had caused all of us, but not only us, but his family as well. He had a paraplegic daughter that was just there at the very beginning, was tore all to pieces, and he had tore his family up, our communities, people all over the Upper Cumberland area. As I said, I was county executive. I know people all over the Upper Cumberland, and we were all devastated. But I stood there and I looked at him and I told him, I said, God has told me that I have to forgive you. And as soon as I said that, something came out of me. I could hear it. It was audible. And God gave me a peace that I still have to this day. And I went and sat down and I wept and I cried and I cried. And as I look back, that forgiveness, it wasn't so much for him, it was for me. And I still have that peace in my heart. And God has blessed us. He's walked with us. He's been there every step of the way. It's been a very painful time. It's painful still. Every spring, I put flowers on their grave at New Hope Baptist Church. I go down there almost every day and water those flowers. We keep them live till the fall of the year. I sit and I talk with them. I commune with them. I know they're not there, but their bodies are there. That's just the way it has been for us, and it's so hard. But I forgave that man because God told me to forgive him. But as I look back, it was more for me than for him.
And God still says, obey the laws of the land. And when you commit a heinous act like this, there is a penalty to pay. Karen, you've been very quiet all these years through this whole thing. How old were you when this happened?
I was 6.
6 years old. Is there anything you want to share now? As far as I know, a first time that you've actually opened up and shared anything, and now that this has come about where this man is seeking clemency, tell us what's in your heart.
I think, like they said, we have followed the Lord and forgiven him. But I'm a teacher right now, so I relate everything back to teaching. My kids apologize all the time, and I forgive them instantly. And I know that's not the same. It's taken us a long time and a lot of work to forgive him. But just like with 7-year-olds, there's still a consequence, even with the smallest thing. This is something that's not small at all. So 15 years is not a consequence for taking 2 lives. And I don't think that he realizes, and how could he ever, how much he has taken away. I mean, our family's not there for weddings, prom, anything, births of other cousins. And I think if it ever sinks in, he would drop it. I don't think it's sunk in, and I don't think he's truly remorseful yet.
Pam, my wife, we were thinking about this the other day when you folks had asked us to do something to get the word out that we need these letters. And little Sarah Bug would have been 20, I think, now. Those are 20 years that cannot be recovered, nor will they ever be. And again, Julie, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is something that this can't be reversed. So again, we are behind you folks. Miss Julia, you've got the paperwork, and then we're going to ask Mr. Effler to comment. Share with our listeners how they can get these letters to you.
We do have just a template that people can go by. We have one that has just a brief statement on it that people could sign and put their address. People can write their own letter. They can put their own comments in here. We have a lot of family and friends that have been affected so much by this, and they can, the personal comments. Of course, I believe in Mr. Effler can speak to this, but I believe it will go to the Board of Parole first for them to look at. But we will have these available. We will have them here at WDEB. We will have them where we can email it to you. We can send it on a text, and then you can get it back to us that way. And anybody in the community that would like to help us with these, that might have a business or something, we would be so thankful for any of your help, any of the churches, anybody that could help us gather these up.
You can contact John. He's here every morning, Monday through Friday, and you can call the radio station at 879-9332 or 879-8164. John, if they want to text you or email you, do you have an address that they can get in contact with you?
They can text me at kf4gub@gmail.com, kf4gub@gmail.com. Give me a call, 704-0515, 704-0515. We want to hear from you. We need these letters, and we need them as soon as possible. Now, a date's not set, but I think it was sometime in the mid-spring, so we need them as soon as possible. We will get them all together, and the reason we need them to come to us so we'll know how many letters we've got, then we'll forward them on to the Board of Parols and to the governor. But Fentress County, you have been so good to us. You elected me twice as county executive. I was so honored to serve. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, and I did the very best I could do. But I need you right now. Our family needs you. We need you to get these letters to us just as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and we love you, Fentress County.
We have with us today our District Attorney General, Jared Effler. Mr. Effler, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come and share with us from the legal aspect of this case.
First, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for sharing this story and getting the word out to our constituents in the community, what's really going on with the person that killed John and Julie's loved ones. And for that, I thank you. My role in this case is one of a supporting role. This was a case that was prosecuted in the 13th Judicial District, and I'm here to support John and Julie and their family and all the people of Fentress County who have been heartbroken by this heinous crime. And I was with the elected district attorney on Friday in Nashville, Brighton Dunaway, and he assured me, and I want to assure Fentress County, he will be there for this family, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that the Board of Parole knows and that the governor knows that this man never, ever needs to see the light of day. But I think it's important as the elected district attorney for Fentress County for me to help General Dunaway to convey to the Board of Parole how this community was literally torn apart by this crime. And I recall as I was campaigning in the hills and hollows of Fentress County in 2014 and talking to her wonderful people, more often than not, when the person I was talking to learned what I was campaigning for, often those conversations turned to this horrific case. Even though it did not happen here in Fentress County, it gripped our community. And I think that's what's important for the Board of Parole to know and for our governor to know. And procedurally speaking, Kevin, the defendant has applied for what we call commutation. And he is asking the governor to grant him immediate eligibility for parole. In other words, if he gets what he's wanting, he would immediately go in front of the parole board, and then they would consider, should he be turned free into society? And that should never happen because he was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. His sentence was life without parole consecutively, meaning they would go back to back. And that means you literally die in prison. And that's what should happen to him. He should never, ever even get the opportunity to face the parole board. I know this sounds cold and cruel, but the only time he needs to be removed from prison is in a body bag. And the way this process will work, the Board of Parole will make a non-binding recommendation to Governor Lee on what they think should happen to this application for commutation. And it's so important that the Board of Parole knows how these crimes have impacted Fentress County, and that's where I step in the supporting role. I'm going to be writing a letter to explain to the Board of Parole how I heard about this case before I even really knew John and Julie. I knew the tragedy that they had endured because it still, years after, was still gripping the good people of Fentress County. And I think that's what's so important for us to get out, to get that message to the Board of Parole that This isn't a run-of-the-mill crime. This is something that Fentress County, unfortunately, will never get over. And because of that, he should serve out the sentence that he was sentenced to, which is life without parole.
There's a word I'd like to use in closing out today's insight: empathy. Someone once said, empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. Audrey Hepburn once said, and I quote, "Nothing is more important than empathy for another human being's suffering. Not a career, not wealth, not intelligence, certainly not status. We all have to feel for one another if we're going to survive with dignity." It was Jim Palmer that best describes what John B., Julie, Karen, and their family are going through yet again. And I quote, "Have compassion and empathy in your heart. Many people are suffering deep emotional anguish beneath the surface of their lives, and smile even as they hurt inside. Let's all put empathy to work and prepare letters to help ensure that justice is served." For Insight, until next time, I'm Kevin Ron.
A team is made up of individuals all headed in the same direction. I'm Jimmy Johnson, and as the leader of this team, I realize being on the team doesn't mean being the same. Each commissioner, department head, and employee of the county have different qualities and skills that, when combined, make a strong team. The most important thing we can all have is the same goal, which is to see this county prosper.
Paid for by Jimmy Johnson.